Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Your Soul Wisdom. Today, we are joined by Irene Weinberg, who is an author of the acclaimed book, They Serve Bagels in Heaven, which shares her story through a car accident and its aftermath. Her international award-winning podcast, Grief and Rebirth, Finding the Joy in Life, ranks in the top 2% globally. Totally jealous, Irene. And featuring interviews with grief and trauma specialists, healers, mediums, and inspiring stories of resilience. Her new anthology, Good to the Last Drop, Embracing Your Life's Third Chapter, offers inspiring, uplifting tales of overcoming loss and challenges in later life, advocating for living life's third chapter fully with love, kindness, and purpose. Irene is also featured in the documentary titled Every Soul Knows, which presents stunning insights from interviews with more than 60 thought leaders in the fields of near-death experiences, mediumship, channeling, psychic, and other spiritually transformative experiences, bringing to light the many ways understanding our eternal spiritual nature can enhance our lives while we are still in our physical bodies. Irene, welcome to our show.
It is truly 1000% my pleasure.
Listen, from the moment we started chit-chatting before we actually hit record, you have just been this ball of light, because when you think grief, when you think of that whole thing, you kind of go on the opposite, sadness and hurt and pain. And so to see you just beaming in every sense of the word is like amazing. So Lauren, I need to know how we are in this present moment right now. Like, how do we get here?
Okay, well, we all know Marilyn. We had her on the show and we love Marilyn.
Love Marilyn.
So Marilyn introduced me to Irene. Marilyn has been on Irene's podcast before. And I had the honor and the privilege of, sharing Irene's soul contract reading with her birth chart. And to be honest, like, hearing her story is incredible. I don't even know what adjectives to use. And the transformation of trauma into purpose and to being of service, it was so inspirational. I'm not quite sure. I was probably more changed from doing the reading than Irene gained in knowledge, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? So it was, and her energy is contagious. And I was just like, people need to know her story. It is quite simply, it's incredible. So I'm not going to go on because I don't have the words to explain. Irene does, and everyone's going to hear it right now.
You want me to go?
Irene, please tell us everything. Yeah, please tell us.
So for all the skeptics out there, I was once one of you. I mean, big time. I thought spirituality was hooey. And my husband and I used to laugh at my sister-in-law, who was very spiritual. We thought she was crazy. Okay. So the joke was on me, because we were married for about 18 years. And I just want to preface, before I get into my story with Saul and the accident, that I had a very tough childhood. I had a very dysfunctional childhood. I was abandoned by my family for 23 years. I went through an awful lot. And so I was trying to heal, in the process of healing and all of that, but just beginning my journey, going to therapy and all, didn't believe in anything spiritual. Okay. And all of a sudden one day, Saul is watching a Jets game. You can tell from New Jersey. Saul is watching a Jets game on TV. And I'm washing dishes at my kitchen sink. And all of a sudden a thought came into my mind that was not my thought. And it said, Saul has to go. Many lessons will be learned from his death. I look around. I'm going like, what am I hearing? What is this? What? I fill a glass of water. Wow. I bring it over to him. I kiss the top of his head, give him his water while he's cheering for the Jets. And I go, whatever that was crazy. And I never say a word to anyone. And I think I put it out of my mind, but you never forget something like that. And 2 months later, we were on the New York State Thruway. We had a ski house in the Catskills in New York. We were on the Thruway, coming home from our ski house from a wonderful weekend skiing. And I want to tell you one other thing. Before that day, the night before, my husband said to me, I'm so lucky and thankful to have you in my life.
Oh.
Well, I didn't realize that was his way of saying goodbye. I
goodbye.
didn't really realize that. So now the next day we're on the New York State Thruway coming home. We're on the Thruway for about an hour and a half. We're going 72 miles an hour. And all of a sudden the car went into a humongous swerve. And I looked over and Saul was sound asleep at the wheel.
Mm.
And I was like, Saul. And he woke up and he went to steer the car out of the swerve. And as he did, we started to rise up into the air for the first of 4 flips. I mean, I'd had
Oh
4 major
my
surgeries since the
God.
accident and everything. And we took off the first flip, and I get a second message, and it said to me, he's not going to make it. You are. Okay, we flip once, we flip, and we hit hard, flip
Wow.
again, and we flip up again, and I leave my body. I'm like, what's this? I'm in, like, I guess I'm in the mid station or in the
The in between.
in between, and I'm like, what is this? And all of a sudden I feel myself return to my body. What I've been told is that it wasn't my time to go, that Saul and I had this plan and it was his time, and that I might have even like begun to accompany him to the portal, but they didn't want me going over there. I was coming back. So I come back into my body, finish the second flip, we flip the third time, and then we flipped the fourth time and we landed upside down in a ravine by the side of the New York State Thruway, which now has a guardrail by it because there were parts of my car still on the parkway, the thruway 6 months later. It was such a bad accident. And we held traffic up for 2.5 hours. And there we are upside down with the wheels spinning, the whole thing. And I'm conscious because when we kept flipping, it's just a natural thing to pull yourself together. And even though I did not know that I was sustaining really bad injuries from the accident, I'm small. So I think that saved my life because during the flip, something pierced Saul's head and started a chain
Mm.
reaction of a heart attack. I sustained a torn artery in the bottom of my right foot. I lost the ACL in my right knee because we kept hitting on the right side. My collarbone was reversed inside my shoulder, and I had a detached retina. 4 flips each time I had something. I look over at him, and I'm upside down
Mm.
in the car in my seatbelt. I go, Sully, are you okay? And I see that his entire beautiful persona is gone. I'm next to the shell of my husband, and basically my reaction was, oh my God, I got told he was going to go. There is something up. There is something to this. He's probably still with me. I just got in that second that there is more than the physical reality of what we think. And now, while I'm thinking about this, I see a helicopter land and 3 EMTs jump out of the helicopter and they begin to rock my car back and forth. They get me right side up on the road. I'm conscious through everything. And Saul is like, gone. And they get me on the right side of the road. And one of them undoes my seatbelt and puts his hands through my shattered window, turns me around, and started pulling me through the window of my car. And as he did, a male voice, I'm told it was Archangel Gabriel, boomed into my head with a directive, unemotional, just a directive. And the directive was be loving and kind to everyone as I was laid on the side of the road. Now, I also want to say one other thing that I'll get into that more, but my husband was buried on my son's 21st birthday a week later. And one of the other
Mm.
things I thought, aside from this spiritual message I got on the earth plane, the Irene brain said, I will get through this somehow because I have to teach my son that you can get hit by a grenade in life and still keep going. So if you girls think about what happened, on one hand, I was programmed spiritually. On the other hand, I myself, right in it, scripted myself that one way or the other, I knew I was in for. I didn't even know how badly I was hurt yet, but one way or the other, I was going to get through this. And my son was my main motivation that I had to. Someone told me they never saw a kid cry harder than my son did at my husband's funeral. And it was on his birthday and the whole thing. So Now I get this message, be loving and kind to everyone. And it literally changed me. And instead of screaming for myself and carrying on, I started thanking everybody who came near me. I started asking them what their names were. The guys put me in the helicopter. I said, "What's your name? It's the weekend before Christmas. Bless you. Thank you for coming out to help me. I'm so grateful." They put me in the helicopter and they fly me to this emergency trauma center. And as they bring me in, I'm not screaming for myself. "What's your name? Thank you so much for helping me. I'm so great. I've been told to be loving and kind to everyone." And I'm honoring this directive I was given. So much so, and there's a lot of things that happened to in the thing. My stepdaughter came to see me. She fainted dead away when she heard her father was gone. And as she was running out to tell her husband that her father was gone, I said, "Sandy, I will always love you. I will never hurt you." I mean, I was completely conscious and aware. And at 3 months after the hospital, I got a call from the assistant to the surgeon who operated on me. And she said, "Irene, I need to tell you, you changed lives in the emergency room that night." No, we've seen it all on that throughway. No one ever saw anyone respond to a tragedy like you went through with nothing but loving kindness and worrying about everyone else but yourself. And I said, "Trish, I had a spiritual awakening. It was amazing." So now, though, I'm in the hospital 3 days. I get 2 blood transfusions. And my sister-in-law, who I thought was crazy, comes to visit me. And she said that she saw that my aura had changed, that I was completely transformed and different. And no one else knew this or could see it or recognize it. So I don't know what else is up, but I know, my goodness, something is up. And so now I go home and I'm in grieving hell. I mean, we got to pick the coffin. I got to deal with 2 stepchildren who I brought up, by the way. That's another series, girls, who I brought up that whole thing. I had to deal with all these different things going on. I inherited a slew of business problems with business partners. I am in grieving hell, but I know something is up. And 6 weeks after the accident, I get a call from my dry cleaner. And you girls will definitely relate to the fact that I talk to everybody. I mean, I am
Yeah.
very friendly. So I would go in and bring my dry cleaning and, "How you doing? What's going on? How are your kids?" Blah, blah, blah. And he calls me and he says to me, "Irene, um, I feel like you're very open-minded, and I would never say this to anyone else. And remember, we're waiting for what's this all about, right? And how spirit puts different people in your path." And he said, "8 years ago, my son died of a drug overdose, and my wife and I were inconsolable. And we went to all these grief counselors and we went to all these people. No one could help us. And then we found out that the soul goes on to the other side." He said, "And we've seen," he starts reeling off these people. I didn't know who they were. And he said, "We found," and he's giving me the evidence that they've gotten, that their son was on the other side. And what a comfort that was. And he said, "And in 2 weeks, we're going to this hotel to see this one new medium who's going to be very famous one day. And if you want to come with us," well, I was talk about divine timing. I'm just out of my wheelchair. The car is totaled, but I can use Saul's car. The man lives 5 towns from me, and he wants me to get in his car. And I'm telling you, for a reason, of course. And he wants me to get in his car and go with him 5 other towns away. I had no idea, but I knew something was up. So I get dressed for this evening like I have a date. I don't know. I read some books. I try to prepare for this. I don't know what it's about. And I go in, I go to my dry cleaner. I leave my car there. I get into his car. We go together, and this was the days before voice recorders and all. So I go to this hotel, and this was a young medium starting out. There were only 35 people in the room, and half of them were there before voice recorders to take notes for their friends and whatever who were getting messages. I have no idea what this is about.
Is this James?
This was John Edward.
Oh,
Before he was
yes.
famous, it was John Edward. And John, it was like amazing. And so anyway, John Edward looks at me and says, "I don't even want to know your name." go upstairs. So I go upstairs and I'm sitting there, and it was like so waited for me to see these amazing, amazing messages coming through for other people. Honey, 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 are you getting it? These people, look at what's going on with these other people. And I'm blown away. I'm getting a message from someone who shot himself in the head with a pistol. Oh, that's my father. I'm like, no. So now I'm listening to all this, and all of a sudden, John Edward goes, I'm getting a message from a guy, and he's talking about Dr. Pepper. Does anyone identify with Dr. Pepper? And I elbow my dry cleaner. I go, Joel, holy moly, start writing, because 15, 15 years before he met me, Saul's brother, who was an advertising executive on Madison Avenue in New York City, was representing the soda Dr. Pepper, and he put Saul's name. Now, come on, Saul Weinberg. It's not exactly John Doe or Joe Smith or something. So he said he had this ad, and Saul used to be hysterical, laughing about it. He said, I'm driving down the street, and all of a sudden I hear Dr. Pepper is coming east from California. Let's hear what the man in the street, Saul Weinberg, has to say about Dr. Pepper. So my God. So when John Edwards had died, and this didn't even happen when I knew him. So I knew it was Saul, and now he comes through for 40 minutes, so much so that John Edwards said to me, how long is this guy on the other side? And I said, 2 months. He said, this is a very old soul. This is an advanced soul. This guy's been around a lot. Do I understand this yet? No, but no. Okay. I get I mean, the messages were unbelievable. He's telling me he died in a different state than where you live. He's telling me you're wearing his skier charm under your blouse. He repeated some jokes Saul used to tell, on and on. And the kicker was, and he's telling me you're driving his car with Saul Z on the license plate. Wow. That was parked 5 towns away. How does John Edward know that unless Saul told him? And the truth was that Saul was a real estate developer, and everyone loved him. And the kids he sold condos to used to call him Uncle Saulsy. So there was his license plate. So now I call, who can I call about all this? My sister-in-law. And she's like, yeah. And, and oh my God, I heard from Saul. And now I start to open up to this world. And I can't tell anyone else in my world, because like I thought that everyone was crazy. They would think that I was crazy. So on the sly, I'm seeing mediums, and he's describing, I'm seeing mediums, I'm seeing spiritual people. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And I'm also seeing on the earthbound plane, I'm seeing a life transition coach. I'm doing the gamut, because that piece is for my son, and I got to get myself whole. And so, and I knew it was a process and all that, and I grieved a lot in my life, and I've been through a lot, but I was starting the journey. And so now I'm opening up, and he's describing his toes to me through someone, the first meal we ever ate together, what he was wearing the night he died. I mean, it is Saul. And I start getting this other message from different people, which tells you that there's something to it, because they don't know each other. And these different mediums and psychics are saying to me, he's saying that you two have been soul mates for many lifetimes, and that you had a divine plan, that if certain things didn't work out for him in this lifetime, he was going to leave early, and you two were going to work from across the aisle. I'm like, huh? What? And so, the first thing they want you to do is write a book. I go, a book? I played the violin. I was a buyer for Macy's. I've done what book? But if your husband describes his toes to you from the other side, you're going to write that book.
Absolutely.
So so my sister-in-law refers me to someone who's able to channel him. And the reason I knew that was real was because when she started working and asking him questions, and it was like in 1997, 1998, she would sit at her computer, which was a simpler device than we have today, but she'd sit there and she'd ask him questions, and I was blown away. Information would come through from him to her. And one day, but I was always a little skeptical. And then one day she said, he's telling me that one of the lifetimes you had, You were a little boy in ancient, and we've had I want everyone to know we've been Greek in a lifetime, Catholic in a lifetime, all these things. And in this
All right.
particular
Yeah.
lifetime, I was a little boy. And he's telling me that you were a little boy and he was your rabbi at a yeshiva in ancient Israel. And he's saying, I'm asking him your name. In that lifetime, I'm having a very hard time getting the name. I'm getting something very, very strange. And I said, well, what's the name? And she says, it sounds like Yelet Tov. I was like, can I curse on this program? I was like,
Yes.
holy shit. Yelet Tov. Yelet Tov is Hebrew for a good little boy.
Mm.
So that's how I knew there was really something to this. And then I found out in that lifetime, my name and all that. But he was literally saying what he called me in ancient Israel, the Yelet Tov. So now I'm starting to get into this and I'm channeling my book and I'm asking all these questions. What was it like for you to cross over? What do they do? What's the soulmate thing about? What do they do with people who are evil over there? And he's giving me answers. What was it like for you to come? And one of the things he said was that when we arrive on the other side, we get a visual or a greeting that feels very familiar and resonates with the lifetime we're living now before we start to see the universal picture. So this good little Jewish boy arrived in heaven and his mother shared coffee and bagels with him. I mean, and I tell people, if you want lox and cream cheese, I'm sure they're available there, whatever you want. But this was his introduction before he got his life review and all of that. So I get the book and I think this is it. Okay, beloved and kind to everyone, check. Getting the book done, check. I'm done. All of a sudden one day, because I don't get all these messages like this, I just got the messages around the accident. One day I hear podcast. And I said to somebody, I'm a baby boomer. What's a podcast? I don't know what a podcast is. And they said, well, we can help you do that. Now I'm thinking to myself, well, they're telling me to do this. Who am I supposed to interview? And then I thought, oh my goodness, I work with a life transition coach. Medium saved my life. I opened up to energy healing. And people were constantly saying to me, how is it that you are so positive and doing what you're doing? And I said, I'm healing. I'm working with all these people. So I wanted to also interview people who have been through tremendous hardship and healed and transformed their lives. And this is a miracle to me. Like you said, Yana, it's in the top 2% of 3 million podcasts. I'm streaming in 100 countries. It's like, and I get emails and from people saying the podcast is saving my life. One of the warmest things and believe me when I tell you, like I said, I didn't believe in any of this. There's nothing to do with ego over here. I'm doing my divine plan. And it's just been like one of the stories I have that's really knocked me out, it still does, is one woman I interviewed had 3 stillborn children. And she, in her grief, she decided to become a grief coach and create a specialty for people who lose infants and young children. And so another woman one day is traveling with her husband on the New York State Thruway. And by the way, I have people follow me from New Zealand and Australia and England, and it's amazing to me. And so she says to her husband, I never miss this podcast. I'm so inspired by the people who come on this podcast. Do you mind, honey, if we listen to the podcast? And that interview was on. And that woman was nearing retirement age. And she said, honey, we had a stillborn child and we never properly grieved our child either. She said, I want to follow this path and I want to become a grief coach and I'm going to get the certification from this woman. And she just opened up the division of a hospital specializing in infant loss. So how can I not be happy? I feel like I'm so grateful and I feel so blessed that in a way that this awful thing in a way happened to me, but in another way, it's helping so many people. And it's such a blessing. And Saul, of course, when I talk to mediums and all, he's right there. I'm right here, honey. So it's like I go, yeah, but I miss your body, but okay. So he's
Yeah.
right here.
Yeah.
And I know I'm going to see him again. And I know that we're going to be together. And then I'm doing my thing. I have the podcast, it's going on. And then I was approached for YouTube. Someone said, the way you are, and so many people are in despair right now in the world and all, maybe you want to do something to help people become a little more conscious. So I'm starting a membership called The Higher View, and we're going to talk about what is consciousness, what is discernment, and teach people who join how to handle life from a higher spiritual, from 5D instead of 3D. Basically, you guys know what I'm talking about, from 5D to handle, which I have started to doing in my life, and it really makes a big difference if you are handling your relationships in different situations like that. And then we're also, I know you can't believe this, but I know, but we're also we're going to do 2 meetings a month. And the second one, I'm doing it with a medium, and we're going to have an Ask Irene and Mary segment, like Anderian Landers, where people can bring their personal problems or things that are going on. And we can just talk like girlfriends, and we can say, well, from the higher view, maybe you want to think about being conscious about your relationship and handling it this way. And certainly, if I don't have an answer, I have someone I've interviewed on my podcast who has the answer. So I can refer them to that. So we're just going to start that. It's going to be called The Higher View, and we're going to start that in September. And this is from a girl who didn't believe, was busy growing up playing her violin. My family was horrible, my natal family, but I always had a feeling that I had a visitation in a way. When I was 13, there was a religious ceremony, and some man entered our synagogue and nobody knew him. And he came over to me and he put his hands on my head and he said, this is a special little girl, and may her life be really good, and blah, 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 blah. And then he disappeared. No one knew him and no one saw him again. I think it was an angelic visitation. That was
Wow.
kind of a preview. I had no
Yeah.
idea. I had no idea. But
Irene,
now,
I
of
have
course,
to
I put it
say,
together.
none of us have been silent for this long ever.
Yeah.
Because your story, I mean,
Ever.
there is so, like, we've just skipped past the whole near-death experience because there's so much in there. So it's just incredible, Irene.
Can I
Girls.
ask too? I'm a hopeless romantic, okay? From the day I was born, it was just everywhere. And so as I'm listening to your story, and this beautiful, love story of you and your husband, how you got together, and how, of course, like I put myself in that container, right? And I'm like, oh my God, like I feel like I have great love. And the thought of getting in a car and one day losing him and now having to pick up the pieces, like I could literally cry right now. How do you even, my first question is, were you always optimistic your whole life? And so you just looked at like the glass half full kind of perspective. But what was it that got you past it? Because it can't just be that you saw coaches that helped you with, like, what is it? There's got to be so much
I
more.
think there's something in my personality, Yana, because I remember my father raging when I was 16 years old and carrying on. My father had polio when he was a child. He was filled with rage and all kinds of stories, and very emotionally abusive and all that. And I remember him carrying on, and I can remember at 16 saying, don't forget this, because you will never do this to your child. There was something in me that was able to process different things that went on. So, for instance, one day and I really think I got help all the way along the line. I remember working for Macy's in New York City.
Sounds like that.
And I had a very young, lovely boss who was from Holland, and we got along really well. And we would get together in the morning before work officially began. And one day I was saying to him, I can't believe it. My whole family's not talking to me. and I'm having a lot of trouble with my ex. We had a big fight last night or something, whatever. And another strange person who I didn't know walked by me and said, "Why don't you go to therapy?" I said, "What's therapy?" Okay. I said, and so like but the way I am is someone else would say, "Well, that's bullshit. That's ridiculous." Me, I go, "What's therapy?" And I start to I say, "Let me find out if that's something that can help me." So I think there's that ingredient in me. I wouldn't actually say that I would just like my dry cleaner said, I'm very open-minded. And my whole attitude with life is I can walk through a door, and if it doesn't work for me, I can walk out the door. But at least I should be open and try it. I'm that way with friendships, I'm that way with food, I'm that way with everything like that. So I think that another great example is Saul and I were dating, and he said to me, "You're perfect for me, but you don't ski." And I said to him, "Well, you're perfect for me, but you have no class." He said, "What does that mean?" So I said to him, "Look, I know you're a jock, and I know you love football, and I know you love to ski. I got from Florida." I said, "But," I said, "I'll make you a deal. I'm willing to put those 2 sticks of wood on my feet and take a million lessons and get with you on that ski slope and go with you to all your tailgating parties. But in the spring and the summer, you belong to me." He said, "What does that mean?" I said, "It means the ballet, classical music concerts, different things." And we blended our world together. It was absolutely wonderful.
Beautiful.
It was so wonderful. He started liking composers, went with me to the ballet, went with me to the theater, and I rah football games. I took a million. I took a million. I went with him though. I skied Europe with him. I skied all over the Colorado, everywhere. And first of all, I wasn't stupid. I saw those cute girls in their adorable ski
Outfits.
jackets.
Yeah.
I
You're
was
like, I
like,
could do this.
"That's going to be me on there, not one of them." But right, but the way I am. So even I know a lot of people in my life who have said, "I'm not skiing," or "I'm not going with you to your football games," or "I want," and that's not my basic personality trait. I think, Yana, you're right. You're onto something, because my trait is, okay, I'll try it. The worst is I don't like it.
Right. And
So
it,
like
and but it's clear you're very driven. But what you're doing right now is you're showing me more ways of this beautiful love that you had. And I still need to understand how you were able to heal from that and not be in a place of loss and mourning, because that is a huge thing to lose in an instant.
Yana, I was in a place of great loss and mourning. I can remember having a tantrum and screaming my heart out on my hallway floor because I lost him. I can remember so many times that I cried, but because of the mediumship and because I knew that he was in some way still with me, and because I had this feeling that, well, first of all, because I loved my son so much and I felt like I needed to be a good role model for him also. But I had, I survived a family that didn't talk to me for 23 years. I can remember, I mean, I didn't even get birthday cards. My father was so angry with me. He totally disowned me and told my brothers that if they had anything to do with me, they would be disowned, and called all my relatives and told them not to talk to me. So I
Was
had
it
no
over
one.
one event, Irene?
Excuse me?
Was that over one event,
No,
one particular event?
my father had polio as a child, and he had a very dysfunctional set of European
Okay.
parents who went through their own hell. I really think it is generational trauma. And so he had generational trauma packed with Rachel, the disability. And in those days, it was a shame to go for therapy. He definitely needed, first of all, he got the polio and was paralyzed from his neck down when he was 5 years old. I mean, think about the trauma. Now I understand it, and I don't have the rage at him that I once did, or the anger with him. But and he's actually come through to ask me for forgiveness,
Mm.
But I think that I mean, I have cried my eyes out over Saul. I have missed him so much. I can remember pulling over at the side of the road and crying. But I also knew, because I got the messages, and because I knew he was around me, and because I felt that it was, I had more to do. I didn't really know what it was, but I wasn't giving up on this life. And the truth is that now my son is married. He's got I have three adorable grandsons. I I'm enjoying my life, and I know Saul's with me, and I know he's around, and I have a pendulum, and the minute I pick it up, he starts going, I love you, I love you, I love you. He's right here, you know. So, but yes, I've been in grieving hell. Absolutely. I mean, I have, you mix the grieving hell with the fact that I had 4 big surgeries and all of that was going on.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting thing. I just want to say this. It's so interesting because we're like really talking. It was very interesting to me after he died and after the accident. There were some people in my life who were really into the fact that I was suffering, and they were jumping up to the bat. I want to do this. And then when I started healing and getting better, they got pissed off. They really, it really bothered them that I was starting to move on a little bit. And not that I didn't love Saul and miss him all the time, but I was trying to get into a life. And what I tell people with my podcast is that a lot of people think that when you grieve, you can't have joy, and one does not counteract the other. The fact is that I was trying to get to joy, and the thing that my son said that was life-changing for me 4 years after the accident, he said, you know, Mom, there's been nothing worse than seeing you in total despair, and nothing better than seeing you be able to have joy again. So that's why I interview a lot of people, and I ask everyone I interview, what's your tip for finding joy? I want people to learn that because you have a terrible tragedy that happens to you, you can still go on with your process, heal, go on with your life, and have joy. One does not preclude the other.
I love that. That's so beautiful because the running, well, people think it's a joke in my life, but I always tell my partner and like my mom and my siblings, I always say, I want to go first, because I can't, in my physical brain right now, I'm like, I can't handle the loss of the love of my life, of my mother, of my brother, of my sister. Like, I can't deal with that. And they think it's a joke. And in my mind, I'm like, no, I'm like dead serious. You deal with it. I can't deal with it.
It's funny. Me and my husband were like arguing about that the other day. He was like, no,
Who's
you're
gonna go
No,
first?
I'm going first. No, I'm going first. No, I'm going first. As if we can actually, do you know what I mean?
You might tune in, they can tell you, right?
Right.
But the other thing I want to tell you, you guys, that girls, that I really tell people also, when they told me be loving and kind to everyone, I really took that to mean me too. So Yana, if you're loving and kind to yourself too, and something tragic happens to you, are you going to become a miserable person for the rest of your life to everyone else who's in your life?
No.
You know, so that, I mean, like, so when people say it's amazing because I'm up there and I take good care of myself, well, that's about the be loving and kind to myself also. And there are things that go on that I literally will say, what's to the highest good of Irene in this particular case? This is something that I've learned. I don't have to sacrifice, which I was a people pleaser because of my parental history and all. I was very insecure. I always had to make sure everyone else around me was happy. Because of the way I've grown since this accident, I realized that it's like when you get in a plane and they say, put the mask on yourself before you give it to the child. I have to take care of myself so I'm good for other people in my life. Right?
But you know what, can I just jump in and say something? It's really interesting that we're having this conversation. I didn't even really realize this was a conversation we were having.
No
It's
accidents.
fantastic.
No accidents.
No accidents, isn't it? Absolutely, beautiful and so very needed. You know, right now I'm talking with my son. He's like 29. about death. My parents passed away in 2013, and they passed away literally within 24 hours, about 24 hours of each other. And
Sorry.
yeah,
Mm.
thank you. It's okay. It was a good thing for them to pass away together. So, out of that, we all grew. Do you know what I mean?
I
And
got it. Mhm.
So, yeah. And so, we were, and so just recently, a footballer has just passed away. Well, two footballers. I think they're Spanish footballers. And they passed away in a car accident, and they were heading back to pre-season, heading to the boat. They were told not to fly for some reason. There was and so they were heading to the boat, to the ship to bring them across. One of them played for Liverpool, and they died in a car accident. And it's really affected my son, because he's very much into football, like our soccer, our sports, our football, like they're all football and everything like that. And what he couldn't compute is it was two brothers that passed. The one that he knew very well, in that sense, he had just got married literally like 5 days before, and he left behind his brand new wife and 3 children.
Mm.
And my son, it's funny, we were having this conversation, he keeps on repeating, I don't understand how you can go on living like his wife. How does she go on living? And I know that I know she will, because of her children. He says her children will, she knows that she'll have to. But he was trying to come to terms with that feeling, that person that, that is the love of your life. I don't know why I'm getting emotional. The love of your life could leave like that.
Mhm.
How do you go on? How do you live? How do you even breathe? And it's just sitting there watching him try to compute this in his brain. Like, what does this mean? How does this work? How do you go on?
So,
And
Amanda, I
yeah,
want to tell you something. It's something I've
please.
done with Saul. Let him take some of the beauty of who this person is and who he's grieving. And his wife will surely do that too. And bring that inside of him, and let some of those traits or some of those ways that he admired guide him in his life and become an inspiration to him. I kind of
Look at me crying.
Yeah, because
Same.
I had to say
Wow.
one of Saul's greatest traits was his sense of humor. And everybody
Yeah.
loved him. And John Edward, right away, he said, boy, this guy was funny. He had people laughing, and he was telling me all, and he even repeated a joke Saul used to say. And so I noticed that since Saul died, I had a sense of humor, but I've become funnier. And I think I've integrated some of Saul's persona, and he's with me, and I've integrated some of that into me. And I also, because of some of the things I learned from him with his values and all, it's a different way I handle my life in certain ways.
Yeah.
And if I was her, I would be talking to spiritual people and finding out and getting him on the other side and say, what was this agreement? And you had to leave me so early. Is there some other reason?
Yeah.
And I've been in
I understand
galleries
that.
where one time I was in a gallery where a guy came with his girlfriend, and his his deceased wife came through, and she said, I put you two together. It was my time to go.
Right.
And I brought her to you.
Mm.
So I would, if I was her, I would go to try to find out what are some of the other, what was going on in the heaven side that this plan
That would have been, in a sense, their agreement, because it was obviously really kind of crazy. But it's just my son, and just sort of like witnessing his level of grief. He never knew this baller. He's just I think his name was Jota. But everybody's kind of grieving over it. But just his level of grief of trying to understand that. How could you leave? How could you leave her? Or how does she go on existing when you're gone? And I can feel that level of that depth of sort of like grief, the understanding, and that love, which is why I was saying that, even so, like with my husband, I've said to him, he's not going before me, and if he goes, then I'm going to dig him up. He's going to get dug up. He's going to get sat at the table. He's sit down there in balm.
Listen, let me tell you, Amanda, Saul Men can't be alone anyway. I used to kid around with Saul. I'm Jewish, and in the Jewish religion, you have a memorial service, and they call it sitting shiva when you're
Shiva.
Yes,
Yeah.
shiva. I said to Saul, "You'll have a date to my shiva. I have no doubt about it. You can't be alone." I mean,
Listen, that's a better
But you know,
mentality. For me, I'd be
but
like,
you
you're
know,
alone. You're
Yeah,
forever alone.
well, it's funny that, isn't it? Because we were talking about how people do go on, and I was saying that, you know, there's this guy that passed away recently. He's a singer from a band, and he passed away from cancer, I think about 2 years ago. It might be about 2 years ago, I think. And his wife at the time, and his wife now, I think she's just had a baby with her new husband. Or is it she had a baby, or I can't remember if she had a baby or she lost a baby with her new husband. And it's like, because I was trying to explain to him, people do go on, and sometimes, especially when somebody passes when they're so young, then, and especially if there's an illness involved, if there's an illness involved, usually that partner says to the one who's going to be left behind that, you know, I want you to meet somebody else, and I want you to you know what I mean, to go on and have a life and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? But I look at it like my mother-in-law, my father-in-law passed away 22 years ago. She lived, I think, for like 20 more years after he passed. But I wonder as well, she lived because of all her children. She's the mother, and all her children were alive, and like some of them are living at the house with her still and things like that. So, and I think she lived on for 20 more years. I think my mum, like I said, my mum went straight after my dad. But I think sometimes that was more my mum saying, "You're not getting in there before me."
Right.
So,
but you know, I've also
interviewed
interviewed people who have said that we make plans for our lives before we manifest and before we come into a body, and we
Yeah.
don't know what the plan for the soul is. I mean, we can find out, but we come into this human body to have this lifetime. We get very caught into the drama and everything that's going on in this lifetime. But I know that I'm going to cross over, and I'm going to see Saul and my loved ones again, and I'll be and eventually I'll be manifesting again for another story, for more lessons to be learned. So even when infants die, they say that that infant planned to have a very short life, that soul
Right.
came in to learn a lesson, and that was it, and often has some understanding with the mother or whatever, that there's a lot of stuff that we don't understand here because we're in our bodies, but when we leave our bodies and go back home, then the pieces start to fit all together.
But
Irene,
Irene, do you
I'm
sometimes?
not,
Okay, go on, Rachel. Go on.
sorry, it's
No,
going
no,
to
go on, babe.
change the subject quite a bit as well, because, you know, I'm intrigued. Like, I can understand how you started off being a skeptic and am not now, sort of thing. But do you have any moments of doubt? Is there anything that you're still processing with your sort of faith, so to speak, at this stage?
Not anymore, because he comes through, Rachel. He comes through. I can pick up a pendulum. He immediately comes through.
Okay, yeah.
And because of what's going on now with different things, that he'll come through with different messages and all. And I know he's doing his thing on the other side. But the minute that I will think of him or whatever, I know he's around.
Very
And
attentive.
I also know, and I have a great story, not about Saul, but about my mother. So for many years, I was estranged from my mother. And then the year before Saul died, my father was dying, and my mother, who was a battered woman and hadn't talked to me like in 20 years or something, was very sad. And my mother was a lovely, lovely person, but she grew up very poor, and she didn't, she married my father, and in those days, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she called me up and she said, "Your father's had a stroke, and he just gave me permission to call you." Can you imagine? And I said to her, first of all, I thought to myself, wait till my therapist hears this, that my mother called me. That was the first thing I thought. But the second thing I thought was, I said, "Mom, what should I say about that?" And she said, "I know, because growing up in our home was very grim." I said, "You admit that?" She said, "Yes, I do." And I said, "Mom, I've been in therapy most of my life, And I am going to tell you that you closed every door you could to me, but I have a sliver of a window open for you. But our relationship can never be the same. I've learned a lot of things and it's going to have to be different. She said, what do I have to do? And what the blessing was, she gave the eulogy for Saul. No, Saul gave the eulogy for my father. And 8 months later, my mother gave a eulogy for Saul. And then my mother and I had the opportunity to heal all the hurts and to come to an understanding. I got my mother into therapy. I got my mother into understanding things. I even had some galleries in Florida at my mother's condo. So she saw people coming through and she used to say to me, I hope you're right. But if your father's going to meet me when I cross over, I'm not going.
Yeah.
It was like a joke, right?
Yeah.
So now I feel
understand
like,
that.
right? So to your answer, Rachel, yes, I sometimes feel a little skeptical or I need a little reassurance. So I'll reach out to a medium I know or whatever, and I'll say, I just feel a little lonely. I'd love to get a message or whatever. So this particular time, this medium I reached out to was in England, and she said, I can't see you for 3 months. I said, I'm not in a hurry. No problem. We made an appointment for 3 months from then. On the day of the appointment, how spirit works. The appointment was supposed to be from England to America. It was 10:30 my time in the morning. I suddenly get a text. Something's just come up. I can't talk to you at 10:30, but can you talk to me your time, 5:30 this afternoon? I said, okay. 4:00, 3:57 in the afternoon, I get a call from my brother in Florida. Mom's just died. I had an appointment with a medium an hour and a half after my mother died. And the medium said to me, she knew nothing. She didn't know my mother passed. She didn't know anything that was going on. She thought I was just calling her to say hi to Saul. And she said, I see a female figure behind me. It feels like a mother figure. And she's saying, yay, I made it. She was telling me that there was a big party for her on the other side. There was even someone she knew and she hadn't seen since kindergarten who was there to greet her. They told me how Saul was waiting for her to cross over and described perfectly my maternal grandfather, described him to a T and how he took her over. And I said to her, and what about Dad? Have you seen him yet? She said, he's in a little different place than I am, and I'm taking my time till I get there. Now, simply know that history or anything. So, Rachel, when you get information like that, it kind of keeps reinforcing that this is real and that it's happening, right? And my mother even has her own way with the pendulum of saying I love you that's different than the way Saul says it. So I know that they're around me. And I am preparing my grandsons because I'm very close to them. And I tell them, Gaga one day will be out of her body, but she will not be out of your life. I will be around you, cheering for you, loving you, helping you in any way that I can. And what I have found is that it changes. If you have this belief system, for you, Yana, if you have this belief system, it doesn't change the grief, but it kind of shifts it a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Look, a lot of how you have handled your life and also seeing your soul contract chart, we have lots of overlap, lots of similarities. And is it something that if God forbid I had to face, I can get over? And of course I will. But I
This
still
is your
don't
tribe.
want,
They will all
I
help
know, but I still don't want to go through it. It's like I always wanted children. It was my biggest passion. And when I was pregnant with my daughter, it was the greatest time of my life. All the while going, I can't wait to be pregnant. I love being pregnant, but I don't want to give birth. I'm not a marathon runner. It's not my jam. I don't want to have to go through that. And so it was, but I'm like, but I know I have to do it, and in the end, it was beautiful and it's fine, but I still would rather not go through that.
None of us want to suffer.
Yeah.
None of us want to go through grief and suffering and everything, but we sign up for it because this is school and we're here to learn lessons.
But this was my question. This was my question to you. I was just going to throw in here kind of like, Do you not think, I was thinking this just the other day, that reincarnation really sucks? And sucks in the sense that losing people, the grief or the things that can be created in this life, say loose or even abuse or anything like that we go through. And I'm not somebody that buys into I don't buy into the whole lesson thing. I think maybe that was the initial mandate for Earth and for the experiences. I kind of don't, as many as all of our listeners and all of us here know, but I was literally, after having these conversations with my son and everything, I was thinking about that this whole reincarnation and having other lives and losing people and stuff like that, and that grief that you go through, that pain that you go through, I don't know anything that's worth it. I just don't. I just think it's just so, and for the most part, it can have such deep imprints on you that it can follow you through many lifetimes, you know. And so I find it really, really hard. And so I'm trying to compute, just within the last few days, I really am trying to compute that I just, even though I've never really, my job really is getting people off the reincarnation cycle. But
explain that to me. What does that mean? I don't.
We're all going left, Irene. We're all going left.
Well, I think maybe for me, it means people just having more choice when they pass, more choice than what I think we kind of like are sort of programmed to think that we have. And so, but I just think that the loss of people, sometimes that grief is just so unimaginable. And so out of that, my next question to you is that, so this happened to you. You also got an understanding that this was going to happen. There were two questions I have. You said that with Saul, it was that if things didn't work out here for him, then he would pass early. Did you? I mean, you don't have to say it if it's, but did you know what it was?
Yes. He was such a good man, Amanda. He was such a good man. He had integrity where he would give up a deal if it was going to hurt somebody. And he was getting shaken down for a bribe from someone in the town where he was doing a deal. And I was literally near him and overheard the man say, "I am going to destroy you." He was looking for, and I was so upset. And the whole week before, it was almost like it was the perfect plan, because the whole week before the accident, Saul didn't sleep. The man was throwing kids out of condos and giving Saul a hard time. I think heaven just said, "This Saul, he doesn't have to deal with this anymore. It's time for him to check out." I mean, I had a sense of it so much so that, and I had gotten the messages 2 months before when we were getting in the car to drive that night to the mountains. I said, "Saulie, you want me to drive?" And he said, "Yeah, I really appreciate that." And when we were coming home, I said, "Do you want me to drive home?" He said, "No, I'm okay. I'm going to listen to the game and I'll be fine." And that's when he fell asleep. And I really felt that I had a sense that it was just too unfair what was going on with him now. It was just too hard for him to
just
take
to
on.
navigate
to take
out of
on.
that,
I mean, this guy was looking to destroy him. In a way, it was almost like that they took him, that it was time for him to leave. And here's the postscript. The man who did that to Saul after the accident and all, here I am with my physical problems and everything going on and crying my eyes out and everything like that. And now I have to go to deal with this man in business because the building that he was threatening Saul over, I now inherited the business headache, and I had to deal with this man. And I had to get somebody who knew the man to kind of help me, and I had to go in and get the zoning that he was refusing to give to Saul. And I knew why he had refused to give it to Saul. And now he is dealing with me. And I walk in and he said to me, "There's a rumor going through town that I'm one of the reasons Saul had that car accident." And I said to myself, and he was, but I also knew that there were other things going on. And I said to myself, I'm going to let him live with whatever he's feeling. And instead of answering him, I just cried and I cried and I cried some more. And he got very quiet and he signed the paper and he gave me the zoning that he had refused to give Saul, which financially saved my life. Okay, with this building that I was able to, and then I have a whole other story about the partner I inherited with the building, but that's another episode. So, but yeah, it was, so when you look at it that way, Amanda, you can kind of see that we always don't have in our bodies a clue to other things that may be going on from a divine perspective.
Yeah.
From the way it's supposed to be. And it's taught me to let people have their lives and not have I'm not judgmental. I try very hard not to be judgmental. I try to understand that people have their challenges, they're learning whatever lessons or not. And they'll find out when they cross over or whatever it is. I try to be very loving and understanding, but not to, in a way, I'm sorry for the pain they're feeling, but I know that it may be some of the lessons that they need to learn, that they've contracted, that they would not have believed that I contracted to go through 4 surgeries and all the things that I went through. But there were a lot of lessons that were learned, not only by me, but a lot of people around me from even at that hospital.
Yes,
right.
From meeting you and coming into.
So you really don't know the overview of what all of this is supposed to be about, right? I just feel in my world, I just feel so very blessed because, to be honest, if I hadn't gotten those messages from Saul, I don't know if I could have made it through my grief. In a way that
I was just about to ask that. It was that part of your agreement. Okay, if you're going to go earlier, because you would have known before, if you're going to go earlier than me, you best find a way to make contact
John Edward was my
and
first,
to change our lives.
It changed my life. It totally changed, knowing that he was, just like what you said, oh my God, I was bereft out of my mind, but just getting that 40 minutes, John Edwards is coming through with proof upon proof upon proof upon proof, that changed my life.
Yeah.
That gave me hope.
Yeah.
And that gave me the strength to keep, not that I wasn't crying my eyes out through parts of it, believe
of course
me.
Yeah.
But I had this this need, this wish to get to where I need to get with it. I didn't know exactly what was happening or why, but when magically my dry cleaner called me 6 weeks after, when I'm just starting to drive and now I'm starting to get the messages, it was like I was taking step by step. But the other big part of my story is I chose to go with it. There are other people who would choose the negative side, to choose not to do it, to choose to live in disbelief. My attitude is, if it's not true, so I changed my mind. I learned something new, but other people don't feel that way. So, and every time I have followed the trail, it works out, which is amazing. So I know, and it's like this podcast, like you guys are doing, we're helping so many people. The world's in chaos right now. People need you.
Right.
They need me. And I don't see it as competition. I go, bravo, there are 1 trillion people in the world. You will help some of them. I will help some of them. Good for all of us.
Yeah.
The more we can reach, the better.
Yes. Yes.
Kylie, I can see you bubbling
Can I chime
there.
in?
Yeah.
Can I chime in here for a second? So I love this story because I have the other side of the story as well. So I, for some reason, have been in life or death situations way more than any normal person should be in their life. And I'm still alive because bitch is really motivated to stay here for some reason. But there was 2 incidences. One was my husband and I were lost in Joshua Tree. It was middle of summer. We were like, this is it. Like we sat down,
Bye.
we're like, this is it. This is literally it. We're going to be a new story tomorrow. Like this is it. And that moment was such a pinnacle moment for our relationship, despite almost dying. And did you know that man pulled out of nowhere? I see 3 rocks in a row. I remember from my high school, my geology teacher said this is a marker for a trail. We followed him and these 3 rocks, and there was another pile of 3 rocks,
you
and we
go.
made it out to the parking lot. But we were like, this is it. It was the most in
Wow.
that moment. Oh, I've been through it. I've had assaults, I've had armed robberies.
Oh my God,
I've
Kylie.
had it all, right? But in that
Jeez.
moment of facing life or death, it is amazing what comes to you and your amount of resilience and what you focus on living for. And
Yeah.
there is something so beautiful and life-changing about that. I remember my last one, because multiple, my last incidents, I thought,
You might say you're not boring, Kylie.
you know
No,
what? I'm
definitely
certainly
not.
not. I'm not being accused of that at all. I'm in the ocean and I'm like, this is it. I'm dead. And there was a higher
Yeah.
calling. There was like, you've got to do this for your kids. And I'm like, I can't. And I remember feeling superwoman powers to get myself out of that ocean. But I was like, I was convinced, and there was this prickly feeling coming over me. I felt things pulling, and it was that stop of like, you're not meant to go, but we're going to give you that boost to temporarily get through it. And it's almost like a blackout process. And you don't know that you're almost dead to the point where you're back on shore and you're crawling up that sand, and your husband's looking at you going, are you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Give me a margarita in a moment, but there is something to be said about that moment. It's literally milliseconds. The world stops and you have a choice. Did
say
you
that
have
for
that
you, like a
choice?
choice.
Like
Yeah.
when you felt that, when you're in that accident, I know that you felt that pull, but if you wanted to, do you think you could have given into that pull and let them take you?
I would have accepted it.
Yeah.
I would have
I
absolutely
would have accepted it too.
When
Absolutely.
the car was going around and around and around, and I found myself into that black hole, into the void,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would have accepted it. But all of a sudden, they had another plan for me. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
I felt myself thrown back in my body.
That was me too. Yep. I completely
And we have
absolutely
spirit
concur with
guides.
that.
We have spirit guides around us. We have guardian angels around us, and they're watching. And if it's not your time to go, they're going to try to help you however that they can.
I just wish
As
it was
much as
something as
they
profound
can.
as being kind
Correct.
to everyone. I'm judging the hell out of everyone, and I'm still not kind to people. I'm like, what was I meant to learn with the like 6 times that I was
But you were meant to talk to me
You're
today. It made me
here.
start to think about that.
Well, I am a medium. Do
You
I
are a
help myself?
medium,
No, I
though.
don't. But anyway, it's pretty
No.
funny that I had to
Listen,
share
there's some
that because
really terrible people in this world, but I think the experience with my father has taught me a lot, because my father was terrible. He was mean. He was abusive. I can remember being 6 years old and being beaten with the strap, and he made my younger brothers watch, and the whole thing, and all of this. But now I understand that my father had polio at 5 years old. In those days, they didn't have medicine or whatever. My grandparents came from Eastern Europe. My grandmother married my grandfather when she was 16 years old. He was 19. They had 6 children. They lost 4 of them. My father was the one with polio. That dysfunctional history formed this guy who displaced all of his pain onto his wife and his 3 children. Okay, thankfully, I survived it. I went for tons of healing. I have another brother who is bitter, so angry, so dysfunctional. He will never get past it. That's his choice, though, because he could have healed Kylie. He could have
Yeah,
gone
that's
for
right.
therapy and all. So I think that, and then I have another brother who is kind of distant from it, but he's gotten closer to me now, and all of a sudden he's starting to grow because he's choosing, oh, my sister has something here. Why do I have to be possessed by? I said to him, look, I would not invite my father's energy anywhere near me ever. but I'm not consumed by, I understand what happened to him. I'm not consumed by it anymore. And he's come to apologize to me a few times, So I think of all of this as a choice. Like I have one brother who chose, I'm going to stay in my anger. The rest of my father, in a way, chose to stay in his anger. I mean, one psychiatrist once said to him, you have hostile parents. You need to go to counseling. My father went for 3 times. He said, I'm healed, because he didn't want to admit that he had a problem. So that's all, those are all. But my mother, when I said to her, Mom, I'm not going back to the way it was, and I've been in therapy, and our relationship would have to be different. She chose right away. She said, what do I have to do? There are a lot of mothers that I've met who would have said, who are you to talk to me like that? And you will start to do what I want you to do.
Yeah.
So it really is, and it really is a choice a lot of times of how we choose to deal with things.
So Irene, can I ask you, when it say like relating to like your dad, so your dad, obviously, as the reincarnation plan goes, your dad would have come in with knowledge, some form of knowledge, that he was going to have this this life altering illness or whatever, the polio, okay, and out of that, he would have had some sort of understanding before he came in of what this would perpetuate, of what kind of feelings, what kind of emotions, what kind of life he was going to live, the struggles he was going to have, and everything like that. So when he came to apologize, was it a case that I knew I was going to have this polio, I knew I was going to have these different types of things happen to me that was going to change my life, but is it that what you're saying is that what he was supposed to have, say, like learned or remembered learned in that process of having that, he didn't? So all the signposts, all the different signposts that came to him, he ignored them all.
Right.
And that. But even before he came, he would have known that he had a choice. He had a choice. There were many different roads that he could have taken. So he could see the signpost and follow it, or he could ignore it. And then he could get to a point whereby he sees the signpost and then he follows that and then he ignores that. So was he apologizing for being?
Let me tell you the story. It's another great story. So the very first time Saul's gone, and I am getting these messages, and I'm channeling the book, and I come out with the book, and now I go to a grief. I go to Sedona, Arizona for a grief healing workshop. Someone, again, Irene, someone says, you want to go to this? I go, okay, I'll try it. So I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I go. So I go, and I'm in Sedona, Arizona with all these people. And there's a woman there who's a medium, and she's giving people sessions in there in her room. And I cannot wait, because I want to talk to Saul. We have to have a conversation over here, So I go into her room, and the woman says to me, Saul's here, but there's another man here. And he's sitting like in a big chair, and he's got dark hair on his arm, and he's like grabbing from spirit. He's kind of grabbing my arm, and I yelled, Dad, get out of here. I don't want to talk to you. I knew right away it was my father. And because of his polio, when he couldn't walk easily, if we were walking by his big chair, he'd grab us, and then you knew, uh-oh, what was coming, right? So I said, get out of here. And she said, he's begging me to ask you to listen to what he has to say. I said, okay, but I wanted to hear from Saul, I said, what? And he said, I've learned a lot since I crossed over. And I understand things like I didn't understand before. And I am so sorry for all the ways that I hurt you. And I said to him, yeah, my brother one of my brothers has had cancer like 8 times and survived.
Wow.
And he had another cancer. And I said, yeah, what have you got to say about my brother? And he said, some of that is my fault. He said, please don't stop talking to him and teaching him and helping him with what you're learning. And with what you're doing now, I'm learning too. I'm around you, and I'm starting to heal by being around you. I want to say my father's around me, really? But that was amazing to tell me that here. So our deceased loved ones, they cross over if they I have another one for you. When you have time for one more? I'm at a big gallery. I'm at a gallery with 35 people, and I'm with this medium, and there's this girl, hysterical, quivering in the first row of the gallery, and I didn't know anyone there. And the medium walks over to her and she says, I'm getting a male figure. It feels like a father, and he's telling me that the night before he unexpectedly died, the two of you had a horrible fight and you called each other terrible names. And when he got to the other side and he got his life review, he is so sorry, because you get to feel what you've done and how you've impacted other people. He is so sorry. He didn't mean anything he said to you that night. Amanda, the difference between this girl at the beginning of that gallery and when she and her father were able to resolve that between each other was amazing. So I tell people that's part of being conscious, when you realize in this world that a lot of stuff that's happening is going to follow you over. Right? So do you really, how do you really want to choose to live? What are the things that you're, we're here to learn these lessons. So that's the way, that's where I know I'm not perfect. Believe me when I tell you, I'm not perfect, but I'm more conscious than most. And I try to be very aware.
Yeah.
And there are people in my life, they're awful. They're terrible people. So in that way, I detach from them now, instead of like carrying the story and talking about them behind their backs and all. Now I'm more likely to say that person is toxic. Woohoo! I will just separate myself out from that person or handle it in a different way. That's how I choose to do it. As opposed to judging them, carrying the story, because I know they have their own story. I don't know what pain they've been through. I don't know what's happened to their lives. I don't know what choices they've made, but I don't resonate with them. So like, keep your distance, please.
Yeah. I like. Thank you.
All right, listen, Irene, we're gonna need you here for another marathon, okay? Because I feel like you're a wealth of knowledge. Okay. Your story. And I feel like there's just
gotta
this
go
part
deeper.
of me. Yeah, totally. But we do have a beautiful little words of wisdom from Lauren, if she'd like to share.
Okay. All right. So this one very much fits in with our topic. It's called Our Spirit Never Dies. Okay. As I sit here, I inhale deeply and exhale completely and feel everything, all of it. The pain, the tears, the fears, the hope, the joy, the sorrow, knowing that there may be many and there may not be any more tomorrows. Here in human body, but a spirit in true form. I know as we exit from this life, our body, it is simply a new dawn. But it doesn't feel so simple as I sit here being human. I feel the pain, I cry the tears, and I wish that it weren't so, that you did not leave the planet, that you did not have to go. And it's so strange because I know that you surround me, that your spirit is lighting up the sky, and you'll wrap your love around me. But there is something so intense about how my human feels. Our soul does live forever, but the child in me still reels. Grief has cut me to my core, and I know I must surrender to feel the deepest of sorrow, to be cracked open, to break apart, to cry 1,000 tears, and to feel like tomorrow will never start. But tomorrow will surely come, and the sun will rise again. There will be a new day. The earth will still spin. And I will be tested because I have to find a way to get back up and carry on, to honour each new day. So my heart may feel heavy and like it will always be in two. But the wound that heals it whole again carries the love you had in you. I know one day I will see you again, but until that dawn arrives, I will carry your spirit in my heart, for our spirit never dies.
That's so perfect and beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
You know, Lauren writes and reads like this all the time. It's like the greatest gift that I wish I had. It's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Lauren.
I did write that after I lost someone very dear to me.
It's
So it
beautiful.
was,
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
so
it was
true,
exactly
too.
how I was feeling.
Yeah.
I just have to say it's been such a pleasure to meet each of you. Thank
Yeah.
you so
Oh,
much.
Irene,
Thank you,
Likewise.
Irene.
Absolute
Why
it's been
don't
amazing to connect with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Why don't you
Beautiful.
let our listeners know,
Pleasure.
Irene, where they can listen to your podcast and
Sign
learn
up
all
for
about
all my
you?
stuff. It's the easiest way is just to go to ireneweinberg.com, and it's WEINBERG. And you can get on, yeah, please subscribe to the membership that's coming on in September on YouTube. You can subscribe to the podcast however you get them. We're there. And the name of the podcast is Grief and Rebirth, Finding the Joy in Life. So and my whole thing is about that we go through all this stuff in life, and how do we choose to heal and transform and keep going on. And that's what that is all about. So, and then I have 2 books that are on Amazon, and that could be another conversation. The first one is They Serve Bagels in Heaven. Like I said, if you want cream cheese, that's fine. And coffee. And the second one is Good to the Last Drop. And that one grew out of so many people told me that when people get to the 3rd chapter of their lives, when they get older, they kind of give up. And I have interviewed people on my podcast who are in their 3rd chapter, and they took these awful things that happened to them in their lives, and they made something beautiful out of it, that they're leaving this amazing legacy to the world. One guy, his son was killed in a car accident, and he's become a grief counselor for older men. Another guy, he went through all this, he's in a wheelchair, he's concerned with climate change, he holds all kinds of meetings and gets all involved politically with climate change. So like each one went through terrible things, but good to the last drop. Instead of giving it up, they're really thinking about till the end what is their legacy that they're going to leave to
Love
other
that.
people. And I've had a lot of people say, what a great gift to give for Christmas or whatever, or to give to someone who's getting older, because a lot of people don't think of you get older, things start to hurt, things start to happen. And so now what are you
They
going to
don't
do
bend
with all
like they
that?
used to.
Yeah.
You're going to be some kind of cranky old grump, or you're going to do something with this,
Yeah.
with all that you've learned and you've been through in your life.
Yes.
Thank you, Irene.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. And for
Thank you.
everyone
Thank you.
listening,
Thank you.
all of Irene's information is below, no matter where you're listening or watching. If you're interested in joining the collective membership, it is the most fun you have, guaranteed. Links are below. If you're interested in a reading, a healing, a guided meditation session, a light body activation, or simply want to say hello to Rachel, head on over to yoursoulwisdomshow.com. We thank you for allowing us to create this beautiful space, and we hope you have a beautiful day. Bye,
And much
everybody.
love.
Bye, everyone.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.